Hello, and welcome to the Grand Cinema Hotel, a podcast hosted by three friends who love cinema. I'm Nathan, and today I'm joined by my two good friends, Gus and Alvaro. Before we get into the meat of the podcast, we wanted to give you a little bit of background since this is our first episode on why we decided to start this. Gus?
Hey, how's it going, guys? Thanks for the introduction, Nate. We wanted to start this podcast because we're just three film lovers who are really good friends also, and we just love talking about movies. You know, we go see a movie like the one we're talking about tonight, and, you know, the texts start flying back and forth. We start watching reviews. We really do love talking about film. It's not really much more than that. I felt like it was a good time to maybe have a platform and, you know, start a community, and just for other people who don't have someone to talk to about movies, this is a place where they can come to and, you know, feel like they're talking to somebody. Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much why we wanted to start the show, just to spread the love of movies that aren't really spotlighted as much as they should be.
It felt very natural for me to want to join in on the idea of making a podcast with these two gentlemen here, because naturally it's hard to find people to have open dialogue or open thoughts about the movies that we go and see. So it was very natural for us to or all three of us, I should say, to talk about this in the same amount of depth and have the same fascination or hate for certain movies. So that's the reason I got involved, and I really love these two dudes.
The reason why I wanted to be a part of this podcast is because I think movies are very important. They're a form of media that includes music, you have writing with the script, you have visuals, and it's just something that I've always been really passionate about. And until I really met these two guys, I never really had anybody to talk these kind of independent movies with. So, like Gus iterated earlier, we thought it would be a good idea to try to open a platform for people to start a dialogue with, where we can share ideas back and forth.
So we hope you keep coming back, and let's get this show started.
Tonight, you will be staying in room 101, Titane, the second feature-length film by French director Julia Ducournau. So go ahead, get comfortable, throw on that Do Not Disturb sign as we dive into the film that is Titane.
I've been wanting to talk about this since Thursday. So what were your initial thoughts? What were your guys' initial thoughts?
What the fuck was my initial thought watching this movie? I had seen Raw before, and I really liked it. So I was excited for this movie for a long time. I know I was blasting you guys with the trailer. Have you guys seen this? Or do you guys want to go see this when it comes out? It's hard to talk about this movie. There's so much going on in this film.
Really, I know when I left the theater, I was speechless. I didn't know what to say. I didn't know what to focus on. There's so many different elements and genres mixed into one film that is essentially a body horror, but has elements of comedy, has elements of drama. It's got
a little science fiction in it.
I did think one of the things that's really good about this movie is you could watch the trailer and it's not going to give anything away for you. Because, I mean, I remember we were discussing even before, like, what we thought it would be based off of the trailer. And you could think it's something, but you're not even close to what it could be. So I really enjoyed that. Sometimes trailers give out too much, you know?
Yeah, you're a liar if you said you knew what was going to happen in this movie. There's no way you could possibly guess how this was going to end. I'm kind of at a loss for words still, even though we're doing this podcast, about what to say. You know, Julia Ducournau is a very interesting director, and she's, as we all know, she's the second woman to win the Palme d'Or, which I find interesting is that so many people at this festival were like, yeah, this is the one. Let's give it to this.
Yeah.
I know Spike Lee was heading it this year, and I don't know if you guys saw that he accidentally gave away that this movie had won the Palme d'Or.
No,
Yeah, there was like a mishap, or not a mishap, but they had misspoke. He, you know, because it was in French, he didn't really understand what they were asking him. They were asking him, okay, can you tell us what the first prize is tonight, as in the first award that was going out. He took it as what's first place, and he said Titane. He gave it away within like the first 5 minutes of the ceremony that movie had won.
He pulled a Steve Harvey.
He very much did.
Which I think is impressive that she went ahead and won that award. Is what I know about that award is it seems not to be necessarily the best film or anything, but it usually is given to directors that have a real vision, a movie that a director is passionate about, and something that they kind of pour their heart and soul in. So if that was any indicator on how this movie was going to be, I would say, yeah, this is something that she probably spent a lot of time on.
What about you, Ro? What would you say? How did you feel when you walked out of the theater?
My immediate thoughts were like, I can't wait to see this again. Just to like give you guys a little premise of how I felt, but it's definitely not something that I've seen before. That's how I felt. Like this is one of those films where you're like, wow, I'm so glad I saw this. I'm so glad somebody put this like in film, like their thoughts on what they like. I really want to show this to the world, and I was really appreciative for receiving that. And I also can like immediately started thinking about all the other body horror movies that I like and comparing them, and just really thinking like this one's up there for me, like in terms of like uniqueness and how well it was like made, I thought, for body horror, you know.
If 2020's movie was Possessor, 2021's body horror is definitely this movie. Titane. We're a bunch of dummies, so we don't know how to speak French. You know, we might say a few things wrong here and there.
We are American. Apologies.
Yeah, apologies. I apologize for that. There's nothing I could do about that.
So I guess before we jump into the movie, like, does anybody have anything
else to say? I did like, because I know the cinematographer is Ruben Impens. Again, I don't know if I think it's in French, but I've seen his work from Raw, and I've seen this now, and I do think the cinematography isn't something like in Raw that was very like instrumental. Like it wasn't like, oh, like look at the. But I thought both films like very impressed by it, especially in Titane. Like I think this one is like one of those films that puts him up there in the discussion for me now. Like talk about like my favorite cinematographers at the current moment.
One thing I'll say before we get into the movie is that talking about films like this, you know, the internet makes it seem like movies like this are very popular because a few thousand people might be talking about it on opening night. But when we were there, we were we were a small group, and then there was maybe 6 other people in the entire theater. Maybe. I'm going to say 5.
It's like a total of 10 people, I think.
And one of the guys left.
Yeah.
He got up and left about 45 minutes into the movie.
I missed that.
Yeah, he did.
He did not come back.
I don't even. Oh, he didn't come back. I'm trying not to focus on him, but these are not movies that are generally being seen the way you would think they are. So hopefully we can help you guys watch these movies if you feel comfortable going to the theater to see these, because movies like this really need that push, and we want to be on the forefront along with the other people who are putting out movie reviews and movie content on podcasts to just help promote these things, because I feel like these are the type of films that should really be in the spotlight.
And the one thing that I think has to do with people not being super receptive maybe, or, you know, doesn't get the hype that we think it deserves, is it's classified as a body horror movie. You know, so people are like, oh, well, maybe, you know, I'm not kind of into this. But this movie specifically has so much going on. Like, I think IndieWire said it's the most fucked up movie ever made, or the sweetest movie ever made, depending on how you view it, which I would agree with, you know.
Yeah, this movie is definitely a lot more than it appears to be just from the trailer.
I mean, just based off of like the themes that you could think up and bring up with it, it's like, yeah, body horror is there, but you also have sci-fi elements in there. It's really funny. I thought there's a lot of
self-aware comedy in this movie.
You know what I mean? And it's also very like family drama issues about kind of like the same way Hereditary is, right? It's like also very in the core, like has to.
It's
do
dealing with broken people. Yeah,
exactly.
Who are. Yeah.
It has a lot of elements that I think people can grab a hold of, you know, broken homes, trauma, but just taken to a whole new level. So,
all right, guys, are you guys ready to start talking about this film?
I'm ready to jump into it.
Okay, guys. You know, I think we're going to get into spoilers now, and you can't really discuss this movie without having seen it. So if you want to rush out to the theater and go see this, go ahead, pause this episode, and please come back. We want you to come back. And if you don't care and you want to hear about this movie, just stick around and let's get into it. Okay, so the way this movie starts, it really just sets up how this whole thing is going to go, because it starts off with this scene of Alexia when she's a small child, And it kind of just gives you a little insight into who she is already, because her father cannot stand her. And this is something that plays throughout the entire film. It kind of leads into maybe why she has this relationship with Vincent, that she's very she's not open to him in the beginning, obviously because of the situation she's in, but later on she sees that she has this thing with him that she didn't have with her father. Her father won't even look at her, and
and that's even before some other events happen in the film. That's when she's a child. So
yeah, so the main starting point of this film is she's in the car with her dad when she's a small child, and she's just annoying the shit out of him, right? Mm-hmm. And he's trying to ignore her with the music, and she unbuckles her seatbelt, and this causes an accident, which is the whole, what would you say, starting point of the film, right?
Yeah.
I was gonna say it's interesting. I think I had to watch it again to make sure, but she's making car sounds in the beginning, kind of acting like a car herself. Because I wonder where she gets that love from, or like where she what is she already? It seems like she's already into cars when we already with this character, meeting this character, and it's just funny how she's still the same thing you guys are talking about, trying to get her father's attention, but based like. You don't know why already, but it just seems like there's something already that's been in the works here. It's not starting.
This accident isn't the start of their deteriorating relationship. It's just showing you that this is already how it's been this entire time. You know, she gets the titanium plate put into her skull, which alludes to the title of this film, Titane. This is going to be discussion till the end of time for us. And then we cut to, we cut to the future, and we see her now as a fully grown woman, right? And she's got that badass. This is the new Drive jacket. Let's just put it that way, right? And she's a fucking badass as an adult. Okay, she's I believe she's in her 30s, they say, and she's a dancer, and she does exotic dances on cars. Yeah, car right. It's like a car show, right, in France. Okay,
that was really cool, by the way.
That scene, incredible tracking shot, by the way.
Yeah, that's one of Julia Ducournau's favorite famous oneers, as she likes to call them. That scene is really awesome, because you think you're in for this, like, as Nate described it when we walked out of the theater, this movie was hot in the first 10 minutes. It was. Very, very hot. Here in this first scene as Alexia as an adult, we come across the actress who was in Raw. Her name is Justine. Yeah, her name is Justine. The actress is actually, what is her name? I'm sorry about this, people. Her name is Garance Marier. It might have been better if I didn't say it, because that was probably a really fucked up pronunciation of it. But the main actress from Raw, if you've seen that film, we see that she's also a dancer, and that's going to come into play a little later on in this movie. You guys want to start talking about why don't you lead us into what happens next, Nate?
So basically, where the movie kind of takes off from is after she finishes her incredibly sensual dance on top of this car, she goes ahead, and you can see that she has fans. There were people waiting outside for her to get her autograph. And as she goes ahead and walks out to her car, one of the fans is following her, and she speeds up to almost a run, and she gets to her car, and this fan goes ahead and basically pronounces his love for her, says that, he's been following her, like, I've seen you in, different shows kind of thing, and she's obviously not interested. And the man goes ahead and leans in and tries to kiss her. And at first, she doesn't respond, but then she starts kissing him back, and you're kind of left with, like, okay, this is interesting. And spoiler alert, here we go. She goes ahead and she kills the man in a very brutal fashion. Gnarly scene. And she just goes ahead and puts his body back in the car, goes and takes a shower, and that kind of takes us into.
And at first you're watching the movie and you're maybe thinking, oh, maybe this is like an abusive ex-boyfriend or somebody, a fan that's always been following her, so she maybe's had the last straw of him. You're really just thinking, oh, what am I in for? Is at this point you're trying to figure out, is this a pattern that's going to happen, or is this just one instance of what kind of person and what kind of life she's been dealing with ever since? Because we're already at this point, we've known that about the accident and now where her life is. So it's a very interesting point in the movie, even just within what, like 20 minutes? I'm pretty sure. Is that
Not. I wouldn't even say
10,
20,
maybe
right?
10,
Maybe
right?
within the first 10. This movie is balls to the walls from the beginning. um, were you expecting her to kill that guy?
I didn't know. I didn't know what to expect. I thought that she was going to go ahead and maybe go with the guy. I didn't know because
What Ro was saying about the whole, what if this is some kind of like abusive ex situation, or maybe she's just trying to get out of this situation safely. You know, and then you see her, her hair's tied up and she goes for this long metal hairpin that kind of looks like a chopstick kind of, right?
They call it later like it's for sewing, like a needle.
Yeah, like a knitting needle, right?
yeah.
And let's just say this is her weapon of choice because this isn't the last time you're going to see this thing, and she really knows how to wield it. We kind of passed over when she's walking into her the club that she dances in, which is like some kind of maybe like a abandoned hangar or warehouse, something like that, right? Where they would do this kind of naughty thing that I would never be caught dead at because we are all good boys and we would never go to a place like this. Okay, let me just get that out of the way because I know our mothers might be listening.
I would never, Mom.
Yeah, Mom, I would never go to a place like this. You've raised me much better than
This
that.
is why I like the movies, because I would never know what that looks like.
Yeah, right? You know, curiosity. I want to see these things from a distance. I don't want to be there.
What I thought was almost kind of crazy was during that first murder it's almost justified. Like it's almost you can feel.
You think that she's just someone who is like, oh fuck, this is probably what I would do if somebody was attacking me. I'm gonna stab him in the ear.
Yeah, stabbed in the ear. And
Yeah.
the mouth. What a scene.
Yeah, what did you think about that? Do you think if someone was to be stabbed in the ear that they would like foam at the mouth like
no
that?
idea. Maybe
I'm like, what part of the brain did she hit? Right?
She
Yeah.
invented rabies. I don't know.
There's a little small part that I feel like we glanced over a little bit right now, but it was when she does meet Justine, right? The first time she meets her is because Justine's trying to talk to her. Kind of like how you would someone
Just trying to
at
get to
work,
know her. Yeah.
and then her hair gets stuck on her nipple piercing.
Oh yes, this is what we mean about having the different elements, like comedy, for instance. This is a hilarious scene, and only something that probably a woman director could come up with, and it doesn't seem wrong, I would say,
right.
because it just seems like something I would never think of that. That these two women are showering after their dances, and the character Justine has a nipple ring, and Alexia's hair gets caught into it, and it's kind of their little weird meet cute, if you will.
Yeah, exactly.
What we keep glancing over and we should probably bring up is that when Alexia is walking into the club, there's like a radio playing, and they're speaking about how there is a murder spree going on in the country, and the police basically have no leads on what's going on. And this is something that's going to play later on into the movie, is that you realize that Alexia isn't just someone who killed once. She is a straight up serial killer. And her deal is that she likes to dance, she likes cars, and she likes to kill people.
That's pretty badass.
Yeah.
This is why I love this movie.
Yeah, right? What a woman this Alexia is.
For be involved in anything like this, so I'm not gonna know. And it seems some would say fun, but to me, I just like watching from afar.
which is something that kind of plays into the neglect by her father, maybe.
Yeah,
maybe.
we never really get the chance to see who she was or is like growing up. We just kind of have to assume this is like who she's always been, or maybe the accident did this to her, and it's
that it might have been the accident, because the doctor says if you notice any signs of, like personality traits that are different, or like
True.
behavioral issues, like come back and talk to us.
True.
Which obviously, she has a lot of behavioral issues, and it seems we don't see it, but I don't think that was ever addressed, which plays back into the neglect by her father.
Yeah, because her we're getting a little ahead of ourselves. She kills this man. She decides to go back to the warehouse because he slobbered all over her as he died. She wants to get this saliva off of her, so she showers in the warehouse where she dances, and we start to hear this loud, extremely loud banging noise. And the way this played in the theater was terrifying. That sound really was something. She hears this banging. She leaves the shower. There's a lot of nudity in this film. Once again, not the types of things we're involved in, but, you know, lots of nudity in this film, making me feel very uncomfortable. I'm not used to this anymore. I watch our Marvel movies nowadays. There's no nudity in that. Movies like Titane, what are you trying to do to me?
The most you get from the Marvel movies are Hulk's butt, you know, so that's where
Yeah, this was no Hulk butt. This was full frontal nudity. So she hears the loud banging, and she goes into the warehouse, and it's the car that she was dancing
The
on.
banging is almost like a beckoning, like a calling. Like
Yes.
that's kind of how it feels. Like you feel like she doesn't want to go, it almost seems, but she has to. So, which leads us to the scene.
I also, that scene, the way the car is beckoning almost, maybe it's just me seeing it this way, but it feels like this is not the first time either, because like the car is anxious to like, oh, you're here, like let's, you know what we do type of thing, you know. It's not like this is the first time it's happening. It's definitely something that's probably at least happened like a couple of times before. I don't want to.
She felt awfully comfortable around this car, and we're just gonna say it. She fucks the car, or the car fucks her, one way or the other, and it's a long scene.
It's a visually stunning scene
Right.
too.
Yeah, it's a great shot.
Because most of the scene you actually don't see what's happening. You just see from the outside view of the car until maybe the last like 15-20 seconds of the scene where it brings you into the backside.
This car's got hydraulics. Let's put it that way, and it's bouncing up and down. I think you guys can understand what we're saying. You definitely want to go check out this movie. Bring the whole family. So as you can tell, she's got a rough life, and she's got some weird habits, and this is just the beginning, all within the first 15 minutes of the film. And it go ahead, Ro. I could tell you have something to say.
No, I was just gonna say, do you guys that shot at the like when inside the car? Do you think it's from the top like a sunroof, or is it off of a mirror?
I think in an interview I saw, the director did say it was a mirror.
A mirror.
Yeah, and this awesome scene takes us to our next scene, which it goes back to the whole neglect thing with her father. She wakes up, and she's got these really bad stomach pains, and we start to see that she has like black liquid, basically all over her legs. And it's very reminiscent of like the scene in The Godfather when he wakes up with the horse head. She's like, what the fuck is all of this? She sees the black liquid, cuts to a shot of her butt, which I thought she shit herself when we were watching the movie. But let's just say she had a bad night. And she composes herself, she gets herself ready, and she heads to the living room where she's watching the news, and the news is talking about these murders that are continuing to happen, and the police still have no leads, which I don't know. Maybe these police are not so good, because she's not very careful about the way she goes about her killing. We see her father come out, and he ignores her, just like he has been doing her whole life, basically.
That was a very awkward scene to me. They are both in the kitchen preparing what looks like breakfast or lunch or something, and you see Alexia go ahead and make eye contact with her father a few times, but he does not once even address her, look in her direction. It's just a very awkward, and you can feel the tenseness in the room.
I do think one of the things, the small little details that makes you like also question like the weird, like how they are, their characteristics is like he seems to be eating like, I think it's breakfast, right? So like
he's having like a proper meal.
Yeah.
Whether it's breakfast or lunch, I'm not too sure. I'm assuming she's a late riser, so maybe it's lunch.
That's what I was thinking too. Like maybe it's lunch. Regardless, like she's just eating bread off of like the loaf, right? She's just taking pieces of
She's got like loaves of bread. She's got some kind of salad mix going on.
Like
she's
hummus
eating
or
like
something?
she's very not put together, let's say.
And that juxtapose like shows how different they are just as their characteristics, which is probably why the dad doesn't like. I don't really like associating with her. And in terms of like her, she's still kind of seeking out for him, like Nate said in the scene. She seems to still want to make eye contact with their father.
He's just not giving it to her. This guy is not really a good father. And then her mom comes out. She gives her a kiss on the head. The mom seems fine. The mom isn't really a character they get into, like, whatsoever, really.
He has like a couple minutes of screen time.
Yeah, the mom was not a character that they really gave much time to at all. Like, do you guys even remember what she looks like?
I think she had brown hair.
Maybe. Allegedly. Who knows? Yeah. They don't really need it. I wouldn't say that this movie was like, they really didn't do that character justice. But this, she comes out, and she gives her a kiss on the head. You could tell she's still trying to be a good mother to her, unlike the father. And Alexia tells her that her stomach is just in extreme pain. And she says, well, why don't you have your father examine you? And that's where we learn that the father is a doctor as well. So he starts to examine Alexia, and I believe he tells her it's nothing, right?
And he has one of the hardest eye rolls I've ever seen.
Oh, really?
When the mom asked him to do it, you can tell that he doesn't want to. How crazy is that? Your daughter's in pain, but you're a doctor, you can check her out, and he just doesn't want to.
Yeah, I think that has a lot to do. Like, that shows, too, that they were in that scene, or the couple of minutes together when we get turned into that scene alone, and she didn't bring it up to him at all because she knew that, like, he wouldn't care. But the second she told her mom was like one of the first things that she told her, and it was almost like, I don't want to inconvenience dad. But she obviously would love her dad to watch. Why didn't she tell him, knowing that he's a doctor?
Exactly. This scene really does break down their family dynamic, where the mom is still there for her. Alexia still has a relationship with her mom. She still tells her things, but the father, he might as well not even be around because he's not looking at her. He's not talking to her. He basically doesn't want her around. And when he does examine her because he has to. It's his daughter. And we see her badass tattoo that she has on her chest that says, "Love is a dog from hell." Mm-hmm. And that's a Charles Bukowski. I believe it's a poem, the title of one of his poems. But that's a badass tattoo. I thought that was cool. And we get to see that in all of her tattoos a lot in this movie. He basically tells her that nothing's wrong with her, right? And that's just something she'll get over. And this takes us to the next scene, which I believe is she's making out with Justine on the beach, right?
Oh, okay. That's
yeah, right. And this scene starts to lay a little more groundwork into who Alexia is. That she has a lot of social awkwardness to her. She maybe isn't used to really like hooking up with people, and maybe that's why she hooks up with. Maybe she's only used to hooking up with cars.
Maybe, honestly, I thought
because she's kissing Justine, and they start to make out and they're hooking up. Things start getting a little more serious, and Justine tells her, "I can tell that you've never been with a woman before because you could go down on me if you'd like," and in response to that, Alexia decides, I'm going to try to rip her nipple piercing off with my mouth.
And I don't even know if that was like her intention, but you could tell like she starts by, licking her nipple. She has nipple piercing.
This is getting explicit. I'm sorry, Mom.
I'm sorry. This is X-rated right now. But she starts fondling. Like her whole demeanor changes and her face changes and the pace in which she's doing it changes. And then you get the cut to Justine's face and you can tell like she's not enjoying it, but she's trying to go along with it.
Very uncomfortable scene.
Very uncomfortable scene. And it gets to the point where she is stretching this lady's nipple out probably like 2 inches.
Yeah.
And
please be a prosthetic.
Yeah.
Please, no actor should have to go through this.
Which I thought, what I took from it is it was her obsession with metal.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Me too.
This scene also reminds me of the scene in American Psycho when Christian Bale's going down on the girl, and then he comes up and his face is all bloody. It's almost like that transition from like the sexual turning into like animalistic, turning into like her want to kill.
Because I think that like what you were bouncing off what you were saying, like maybe she's just used to being with cars for most of the time. So obviously I wouldn't know, but I'm sure if you're like trying to fondle a car, it'd probably be pretty aggressive.
Yeah, right.
Almost like when she takes in like the nipple ring, it's almost like she felt like she was with the car, which is why she's
that piece of metal.
Aggressive. It's the piece of metal. So that's why I do think it's because it's a piece of metal. Like it just same thing bouncing back to the piece of metal that she has in her head. It almost like she identifies the whole film with any type of metal or specifically obviously something that's high resistant to heat. It seems like because flames is all over the car that she was with in the beginning, and
it's just true. Fire and metal are huge roles in this film. So continuing on, Alexia and Justine are hooking up, and Justine finally says like, "What the fuck are you doing? Like this is painful as fuck. Please stop." And Alexia doesn't really know how to take it. She isn't really much of a talker, and this is even before we get into what the movie's really about. she kind of just ignores her and is like, all right, well, fuck you then. I'm going to take off.
She leaves.
Yeah, she tries to leave, but we see that they obviously, kind of make amends about it, and they go on about their night. And this is where one of the best scenes in the house, or in the film, takes place, because we are in this 2-story house, beautiful looking home. I would love to vacation here.
Yeah, it's so nice.
And Alexia and Justine are hooking up again, and the good old hairpin comes back.
Mm-hmm.
Her lust turns into rage, and that hairpin goes right into Justine's chin. Or not her chin, sorry, her cheek. Yeah, it goes right through her cheek. She's in complete shock, and then Alexia stabs her in the back of the head.
We're all in shock. I didn't see that coming at all.
No.
Like, it's really such an abrupt scene. Like, they're getting back into it on the couch, and then all of a sudden, within like 0.5 seconds, she has the hairpin in her face, and I'm sitting there like, what the fuck? And Justine is looking at Alexia like, what the fuck? And I don't think anybody really knows what to think, because it kind of goes back to the first murder that occurred, and you kind of think that she did it to protect herself. And now when you see somebody, you see the person who seems to care about her the most, that we've kind of seen throughout the movie, except maybe her mother, being, Justine, and she just goes ahead and starts killing her too. I was thrown for a loop. I did not know what to think. And then the scene continues to progress.
Yeah, I couldn't believe she killed her, because I really thought, like, yeah, it must have just been self-defense in the first scene, and I didn't think that she would just so quickly kill someone that she's hooking up with. Like, this is a very quick villain turn.
I don't remember. Do we know that there are other people at the house before she kills her, or do we?
No. So she stabs her in the back of the head, and one of the roommates comes out from the second story and is kind of like, "What's going on?" Right?
Because he's like coming down to the fridge or something. It seems like
yeah,
he happens to be coming down for some reason.
Getting a glass of water or something.
Exactly.
Shouldn't have got out of bed.
Usually how it goes in movies.
Yeah.
And now, because Alexia is no longer armed with her hairpin, she has to go ahead and use another weapon of choice, which is a stool.
Oh.
Which is, I don't even really know how to describe the scene other than absolutely brutal. I think you get one of the best mixes of like sound design with violence.
Oh yeah. That must have been a big old piece of lettuce they ripped in half to make that sound, or whatever the hell they used.
I mean, I'm sure. Hopefully, if you guys are still listening to this, you've seen the movies, you know what we're referencing. But if you don't, what happens is Alexia basically beats the dude with the stool, like a bar stool, right? And she starts pounding his face in with the legs of the bar stool. She ends up putting one of the legs of the chair in his mouth and crushes it. And then guess what happens after she
sits on the stool. Just to give herself a little break. It's tiring killing two people. And she's not even done yet, because we see there is another guy in the house.
Right before all of this happened, when the guy was coming down, he kind of screamed out to his girlfriend, right? Because that's when she comes down. He tells him call the police. He tells her call the police. So that's when you know, like, okay, so they're gonna call the police, so they're on their way. Now it's just about, hopefully she's gonna try to kill all three of them, and that's what you think. There's only three of them. And
yeah.
So then she does that. She sits on there, and then she goes back up the stairs, and another guy comes out of like a fourth room, I want to say.
I don't even know. And at this point, Alexia asks him, yeah, here comes some more of the comedy angle in this movie. She's like, how many of you are there? And are more of you showing up? Because I need to know how many people I'm going to have to kill. And you could tell this is really taking a toll on her, because she hugs this guy before she kills him. She gives him a hug, and she's like, I am so tired. And he's like, I'm tired too. And then she takes that fire poker, and she sticks it in his back.
Literally stabs him in the back.
Yeah, she literally stabs this man in the back. This is a big man. He could have easily fought her off if he had understood the situation.
Like bear hug crusher.
Yeah, but this dude was in his boxers. He was sleepy. He had no clue what was going on, and she caught him completely off guard.
Which is a great view, I think, of her manipulation. You know,
yes.
She obviously, that guy, he's like 6'5", 6'4", 6'5", probably close to 300 pounds. He's a massive
Look at the linebacker.
Exactly. And then she went ahead and, kind of tricked him into a little hug and then stabbed him in the back. She knows what she's doing, and it's frightening, honestly.
And then she wrestles the girlfriend, right?
Why does she come out of the room though? Is because I mean I know she starts. Is it to just kind of try to escape and get out of there and run out?
I think did she run down the stairs?
Yeah,
She tried running down the stairs because there's a really great shot where they're wrestling down the stairs, and it's just really showing you the complete chaos of this scene. Oh yeah, she definitely runs down the stairs because the scene ends with Alexia getting her head slammed against the wall.
Right.
Which is a big kind of red flag, because if we remember in the beginning, the doctor said that the only thing that can really mess with the plate in her head is
trauma.
It's like contact.
Another
like,
huge impact to
exactly.
the same spot.
Blunt trauma.
Yeah, and she got kicked right into the wall.
Yeah, that kind of opens up a little bit more of the film of like, how reliable is this narrator?
Yeah.
So
Yeah, that's true. I hadn't really thought about that, but they had referenced that in the beginning that, yeah, basically that there was heavy Malignant vibes, right?
Yeah.
What's up with these movies now? Head trauma this year, right? Yeah.
Conversation prior, we were talking about. I told him, right from the beginning, right when they put a plate in her head, right. I started thinking, just based off of other movies that we're watching, I started thinking how much can I rely on my narrator now, on like who the person that I'm watching, like how much of this is what she thinks is happening as opposed to what is really happening.
What's really happening?
Because obviously once we talk more about the movie, we'll discuss it some more, but it's just certain things that happen and makes you think, is this really what's happening, or is this actually what's happening and she sees it this way? Again, because then at this point she has the second hit to the head, like Nate said. And it also is like, is that why her character kind of swifts, like she starts to make hasty decisions, which will be the next scene that we talk about when she goes back.
She wakes up. Somehow she gets away from this scene. I'm telling you, the police suck in this movie.
Right.
These are maybe some of the worst movie cops because I don't even think we ever see any cops. That's how pretty much pointless they are in this movie. Alexia returns home, and she decides it's probably a good idea to light my clothes on fire, which turns out to be a horrible idea.
Even before that, as she's walking back home, she's a mess. She looks exhausted. She looks like she was beat up. You see her father staring at her from the window, and it's just a look of disgust. And I almost think, I know that Ro, you talked about it. Does the father maybe have an idea that she could be responsible for some sort of murders or something?
I think in that scene, it visually shows you the disdain that he has for his daughter, because it's like he's smoking, and it almost seems like something he always does, like smoke that late, and when maybe the mom doesn't know that he smokes. He's a doctor, right? Mm-hmm. Doctors aren't supposed to smoke, even though a lot do. But I was gonna say, it almost seems like he's always up at that time, and him seeing her is almost always like, I know that you're the person that they're looking for, but I don't even care enough to like try to either save you or rat you out. Like, I just don't care. Like, I would rather you didn't exist. And I feel like, because she looks up at him, and I feel like that message is sent both ways. She also gets that from him too. Like, and I think it might be like the last final straw for her.
It is, because what follows,
She decides she's gonna light her clothes on fire in the garage, and she sets the whole garage on fire. And this is one of the best visual scenes in this film. Alvaro was talking about how he thought that the flames look like a phoenix, right?
Yeah, it's definitely my favorite scene in the movie. I thought it was really cool how the flames seemed to be more like really aggressive, like shot up almost like a fire cannon type of thing, but it looks like it's a phoenix, and that's how it like. She just happened to throw a little bit too much gas in there, it seemed like.
Which I honestly think that I didn't notice the Phoenix, visual look. But I think, Phoenix represents a rebirth, which is kind of what progresses in the next film. We see her transition to, what happens next. And she,
this movie is a lot about transforming yourself and becoming someone else, like in a very short period of time. She sets the garage on fire. She also kills her parents. She locks them. She takes one last look at her dad. He's awake. He sees her. I think he understands what's going on. And she locks the door on him. The house burns down. And yeah, this is her her Phoenix moment, if you will. This is like, I'm reborn now from my life, because this is the last day of her life that is normal as it could be, I guess. Right. Whatever normal is for her, this is the last time that she's gonna have any moment of normality in her life.
I think that's why I think the callback to when they are looking at each other, that why it seems like they understand that of each other. Because like you said, when she goes and closes the door, he wakes up, but it's almost like he's not even urgent enough to, like he's not sure if there's something wrong. But then right as she closes the door, it's just confirmation that like, okay, I think tonight is the night that she's just gonna.
Yeah, he probably knew like she's gonna kill me one day.
And I think that also bounces back to what you're talking about, the mom character. Because if she was just willing to throw her mom under the bus too, then maybe we think that she's caring, but she's just as very like not.
Yeah, it's not like the mom ever did anything to make it better. Probably. It's just, you know, she was doing the best she could with a shitty husband and a fucked up daughter.
Just a bystander. You gotta do.
Yeah, she was just a bystander, and she was definitely a casualty of Alexia's hate for her father.
And so after she goes ahead and torches her house and her parents, she, you know, walks to the side of the road, throws up the thumb, and the first
starts
car
trying to
that comes
hitchhike
along,
it.
She gets to hitchhike, and she just kind of takes off. Doesn't care where she's going. It doesn't seem. She just goes as far as the car will take her.
And it takes her to train station, where this movie really starts to become what the fuck. Like it takes a very quick turn from what it just was.
I think it becomes like the main focus of the movie. What the movie is truly about, everything kind of leading up to this is a little bit of background and like to get what the movie is really about started, I feel like.
So Alexia's in the train station, and she gets the bright idea of, why don't I steal this guy's identity, right?
Because there's like a visually, there's like, I don't know, it looks kind of cool actually. Like, is it like papers or like, it's like a screen, right? With a bunch.
Yeah, they're like just screens, like how they have billboards now that are screens instead of actual print.
And it's like the renditions of what these missing kids in France, because there seems to be a lot of missing kids too, obviously, in this. I don't know if that's just a thing in France or if that's just in the movie they make it seem like that.
That there's a lot of actively missing kids, but
like you have murders and missing kids, and it's like, what's going? I don't know. Again, maybe the police just aren't that good, right?
yeah. I hope I'm not shitting on France as a whole right now, but your police just did not have it together in this movie. Yeah. So what Ro is trying to say is that there's these like billboards in the train station that are showing children who have gone missing, and it digitally ages them up to what they might look like as an adult. So it's like, this is what they look like when they went missing, and this is what they might look like now. And the lucky winner is a boy named Adrian Legrand, who went missing when he's 7 years old, so he would be 17 now, right? And this is where like the whole transformation aspect of the film really starts, because the actress, I feel like we haven't even gotten to this yet. The actress, her name is, I hope I say this right, Agathe Roselle, and she's a first timer for feature films. I know she's been in some short films or something like that. Yeah, she said in an interview, but this is her first movie, and she fucking kills it, dude. Like, I don't know why they decided to pick her, but good for them. Julia Ducournau said that the casting director found her on Instagram because she's a model. And, they just slid in the DMs and asked her straight up, like, do you want to audition for this movie? And Agathe said that at this time in her life, she was like, I would say yes to anything. It didn't matter. So I went and I did the audition, and I didn't even know what this thing was going to be about. I had no idea about the car scene. I had no idea about all these transformations and everything, but I just accepted it because they wanted me. And she was really glad she did, obviously.
And I think that bounces back to the director. She was looking like she wanted somebody who was androgynous looking, right?
Yeah, yes. She said she almost casted a male actor to play. Yeah.
Very interesting.
Right?
What I have to say, high praise to Agathe Roselle. I hope I said that right. Sorry if I didn't. But I'm curious on how many words she actually spoke in that
Not
film.
many.
Not many.
Yeah.
Have a performance as powerful as hers, and it mostly being body acting with body language and facial expressions, and just overall the way that she's able to change her mood with the way that she acts was incredible. And then to find out that it was her first film, I mean, high praise to her. I'm very excited.
Yeah, me too, dude. Just a really great actor, and I do think maybe the not talking so much, not having that much dialogue, was because she was a first-time actor. I know that they had written the script with a first-timer in mind, or a fresh face, And you know, because of how much transforming there is in this film of appearances for her, she needed someone who it wasn't going to be like a distraction that, oh, look at this actor and look at how much they're going throughout this movie. Like with let's just say it's like something like The Revenant, where it was like we saw how much Leonardo DiCaprio was struggling, and that's part of what plays into it. But when it's a fresh-faced actor like this that you've never seen before, it just sucks you in more. You're like, whoa, who is this person, right? Where did they come from? With the whole like androgynous thing, going into this movie, I honestly had thought that the actor was trans. So because of the way that the plot was talking about it, the plot says that a son is reunited with his father after 10 years. And, you know, I thought maybe, okay, well, she was a boy who transitioned to a girl, and maybe that was going to play into the movie or something like that. But that's not what's going on in this film. And I just think that casting choice really cements like how much this movie is about transforming, and like how one person can just become so different in a short amount of time. This is gonna take us to like one of the more gnarly scenes in this movie is the transformation. Yeah. She gets a pair of scissors and she cuts her hair. She butchers it horribly. She had a sick mullet. I'm pro mullet. And I really enjoyed the mullet she had.
Actually, that kind of bounces back something. I don't know, we haven't talked about it yet, but like even the scar is really cool that she has.
Yeah,
right?
it looks like brain, right?
Yeah. It's kind of like the same way like a old fossil.
Yeah, like when a fossil's sticking out of a wall, right?
This is really
and you
funny.
can see it.
It kind of reminded me of one of like the Pokemons, like the one that like the oyster.
Oh yeah. I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like it just really maybe it didn't really have to do that much. Like it was just happened to look kind of cool, but I just thought it's like that and her hairstyle. I was like, wow, like this is really really sick.
It was a very good touch. It was a very good touch. Which we have to throw it back a little bit, I feel like, because we have not even talked about the fact that she's pregnant.
Oh, yes.
And the scene that follows when she is pregnant.
Yeah.
This kind of happens back before, back in like, I think it's around where the mansion scene happens, when she goes ahead and kills the 4 kids. It's a little bit before that. Oh no, it's when her mom, it's the morning that she wakes up with all the bruises and stuff, and she said that she feels bad.
Yeah.
She takes a pregnancy test, finds out it's positive, and then she goes ahead and turns her little chopstick on herself, tries to perform, which is,
like
I don't know.
An at-home abortion or something like that. I don't know. It was very, very uncomfortable.
I think that was probably the most uncomfortable scene for me. And I think it was meant to be like that. And I don't know if she did this on purpose, but obviously, especially in America, so I don't know because she's French, but in America we've had a lot of stuff going on with abortion. And I think maybe that was kind of like a take on, like, is this really what you want people to be doing? Like, it was a horrible thing to watch.
I thought about that too, but then I was like, remember, this is a French film, and making it more political than it should be.
In our like scarred American brains, everything has to become political. Right. But I don't think it had anything to do with that.
But it's also because it's also a world issue, right? Like, America, every other nation has their eyes on America, and like we seem to be the very like. Some people would say very developed country. It still has this issue of like where you talk about that everything is free choice, but then you have something like this, and that's why maybe it's a subconscious thing for us too to see it, to know like maybe some people should see this because these are like the alternatives of what if it wasn't just easy. Because she could have just told her dad, who was a doctor, right? If they were close, like about this.
I just think this scene really kind of shows you what movies can make you feel that have nothing to do with what's going on in the movie at all. Like all of these things we just said are like how we took them, but it probably doesn't have anything to do with what we just said. It's just that because you see a movie and you know what's going on outside in real life, and you're like, oh shit, that's kind of like what's going on outside.
It opens.
Oh yeah, definitely. There's like 1,000 different things I could talk about with this movie. Yeah, I don't know how we kind of skipped over that. I feel like we were getting to it anyways right now because this transformation scene we're talking of this is the first time she does this, where she starts to like, it's got some bondage at play where she's wrapping herself up with these,
it's like ace bandage.
Yeah, like an ace bandage to try to hide that she's a woman for one. and that she's also pregnant because now she's gonna assume this identity of this boy. Yeah, that was just like, once again, uncomfortable. Like the way she was just so aggressive with her own body was just like, oh man.
You see her like she really just with no regard makes the bandage as tight as possible, and you can tell that it's hurting her. And not only that, but then she has the idea that she wants to break her nose to make it appear a little more masculine. And she starts by repeatedly punching herself in the face, which are honestly some of the weakest punches I've ever seen.
More of the comedy aspect in this
Very
film is
funny.
that, yeah, those punches are doing nothing. She has to punch herself like 5 or 7 times.
And it doesn't give her the effect that she wants, so you get a great camera angle from below what I think is the counter, and you see her eyes kind of look at the counter, and she decides that she has to bash her face on the side of the sink, which she finally achieves what she's trying to do, which is just, once again, incredible sound design in this movie.
The effects and the sound design, they were A1 in this film,
Yeah.
because just the look of the transformation within the like 2 minutes of this scene is just, it's not the same person anymore. She also shaves off her eyebrows to give herself just this like
Androgynous look.
this like blank appearance almost. Yeah, like with the whole androgynous thing, and like maybe thinking that she was like a trans character before I had seen the movie, that she's become like she just looks blank, like not even like a man, a woman. She just looks like this person you've never seen before. She hardly looks like a person.
No, exactly.
And just that scene is really something else. That's one that really like I sat up like, whoa, what the hell? Like
There's two scenes in the movie because all three of us sat together, but where I like went, oh, but I also saw you guys just like do the same sound or get off your seat the same way, and it was the chair scene because the way it just like
that crunch.
Well, that one was really good because you hear the crunch, and I saw both of you kind of do this too. But then when it pans out and you see how his head was, because it only split like in half, right?
Yeah.
And the other scene was when her breaking her nose on the sink, because it was just like, oh my god, like just you've accidentally like hit your hand in the sink edge. It just hurts, you know what
My
I mean?
toe.
Yeah, exactly. But to think like your nose, something so fragile, it was it's.
Yeah, it's not easy, and I for one, I never find it easy to watch when women are like harmed in films like this. So it was just such an uncomfortable scene. Like, oh no, you know what I mean? But she can handle herself, and she doesn't need me to feel bad for her. She's a fucking crazy person. I'm sorry to be so like blunt about it, but maybe I could describe it in a better way, but that's the word I'm going to go with, is that she is unhinged. She's truly like a deranged, insane person. And this is when you know, like, okay, buckle up. This shit is getting serious.
So at this point in the movie, like I was thinking back, she starts to now associate more with like out of this movie characters in terms of like more like American Psycho. Like she's a lot more how Christian Bale's character in that movie is. Like she's, like you're saying, she's just insane at this point. Because before this point, you're thinking, like we were talking about, there's maybe it's a situation that she's in. She just had to kill people, or like before even the scene in the house. But like at this point in the movie, you already know that she's just killing people left and right. Because she's just trying to get out of whatever situation. Because now the cops are on to
Yes,
her.
finally, after these days or weeks of murder. And
It's after she burned down the house, I think, right?
She finally committed a crime that was too hard to ignore. She lit the fucking house on fire. They were like, okay, now's the time to step in. All these murders, that was one thing. Setting a house on fire, it's time to, spring to action.
Because that's like something I did really like and forgot about talking about the scene when she first walks into the train station. She's right in front of the depiction they've drawn of who they think is the person.
Oh, yeah, she walks by
standing
her
right in front of it.
depiction of herself, yes.
Which is really, I thought was a really cool shot.
They honored the mullet in that shot.
Yeah, they did.
Yeah, they gave her a good mullet in that
It's
shot.
like one of those things where they just drew off eyewitnesses, or because she killed her parents, or it's left to assume that they obviously knew it was her, so they drew it very. Because it kind of looks like her, kind of doesn't look like her, but they did have the mullet on
I
point.
think it's the connection between that night. She, the woman who got away from the house, she had a very clear look at her face, obviously. So that's probably where they got the depiction of what she looked like. Because that night, she went full ape shit. There was no more ignoring this. That's why there was no more going back to her normal life, because she'd gone too far. She committed multiple murders in multiple places. She committed arson. A witness got away. So there was nothing she was going to do at this point to like keep her low profile. She was going to have to get away somehow.
You're right. Just as you said, she doubled down. She was just ready to.
She doubled down. I'm becoming the worst person.
Because she was like, well, now I have to run through that. My dad might validate his reasons why he doesn't love me now. So I might as well just take him out of the equation.
Let's just get it all over with.
Double down, baby.
Which takes us to the meeting of Vincent, the fireman.
Yes, played by the wonderful actor. His name is Vincent Lindon, who plays Vincent in this movie. So original.
So this movie is obviously our main character, Alexia, has taken this identity of missing
Adrian.
child, right? Adrian. And Vincent is Adrian's dad. So naturally, she turns herself into the police kind of at the train station. I'm assuming it was still at the train station.
Yeah, or something
Right,
like that,
whatever.
right?
And the police go ahead and call Vincent to come pick up, like, your child has been found. So we get this little awkward reunion, because obviously these people have never met. And you can see the police kind of want to maybe do a DNA test. Like, do you want to make sure that this is your kid? And we get the first sense of how happy, I guess, Vincent, or how, like, his longing for his son, because he says, I don't want a DNA test. I know 100% that this is my son, and nobody can tell me otherwise. When it's not your son.
Yeah, this is where this movie takes a turn into, it kind of leaves behind the body horror element for a bit, and it becomes this weird family drama type of movie, because we find out that he takes her home, he takes him home, because at this point now there is no more Alexia, there is only Adrian, the son. And they're driving home, and Vincent breaks down in the car, because obviously he hasn't seen his son in 10 years. It's going to get weird describing this movie. Once again, please see this film. Will anyone even know what we're saying? You know what I mean? If you haven't seen this movie. He's taking her home, and he breaks down, and he tells Adrian that, like, you don't have to say anything, and you can talk when you're ready, and just know that I'm always here for you, and that I will always protect you. And that's pretty much the last Adrian talks for, like, what would you say, the next 30 minutes of the film, right? Yeah. Alexia, since she is now Adrian, will give away herself if she talks. So she kind of has to play this whole silent role that, like, will happen with people who have been through, like, traumatic incidents where they won't talk anymore. Vincent even mentions that later on in the film. He's like, it's very normal for people who have been through these things that they don't talk until they're ready. So she now is just kind of playing this dude for, like, yeah, I'm your son. And go ahead.
Bringing up a good point that we talked about it before too. Like, do you think at this point he's still being played, or the same thing that he didn't want a DNA test is, like, do you think it was just about filling the void, and as long as it looked like Adrian, or as long as it felt like Adrian to him, it was fine?
There's a point later on in this movie where we can, like, 100% confirm that he has to know that this is not his son. Something very gruesome and horrible happens later on that we'll get to, that is pretty 100% evidence that, yeah, it's definitely not Adrian, dude. Right. So he's just a tortured dude, you know, and he's been through a lot. And the actions that this guy goes through, it really just kind of shows you that he's trying to hold on to the past in ways that are, like, he's refusing to grieve, you know what I mean? He's refusing to accept his loss. He's trying to hold on to these things even though there's nothing to hold on to. He's trying to hold on to Adrian even though this is not Adrian. And because he's a fire captain, he also is he injects himself with steroids, like, on a daily basis, like, trying to retain that strength that he once had, but he's, like, basically immune now to the steroids, and it's not doing anything to him except, like, almost causing him to, like, overdose and die when he takes these things. But, you know, we're getting a little ahead of ourselves here. we realize that he's like a fire captain, right? And that now Adrian and him will be living on like the fire base.
I guess.
Yeah.
Kind of looks like a military
At the
base,
station.
right? Yeah, but it's like a fire
Then
station.
a French fire station seems
Yeah.
really nice.
Yeah.
Because obviously it's like the room that's why it's interesting because they are at a house at one point, right? Because it was Adrian's like room.
They probably, I think they might have like barracks.
Yeah, like just very military style, where it's not like a house, but it's got, you know, rooms and stuff like that. But yeah, it's like a compound.
And like because at one point like there's a kitchen and stuff like that, so it's interesting.
This is a reference you'll probably understand because we used to watch this show together. Is you remember in Sons of Anarchy they had the clubhouse and then they had the rooms in the back of the clubhouse?
Right.
Just kind of that kind of vibe, more than an actual home.
That is what it looks
Yeah.
like. Yeah.
That's funny. Hey, if we got any Sons of Anarchy fans out there, let us know. Yeah. Yeah, so he brings Adrian to the fire station and he says something that is kind of keys you off, like this is what's gonna go down later on. He tells Adrian that I will kill anyone who harms you, even myself. So this guy is just like committed to his son, even though we're pretty sure he knows it's not his son, but he's just a dude who wants someone in his life and like he doesn't really care who it is.
He seems to be a very lonely man, and I think it's interesting because when he first brings Adrian back, you have what is
The character's name is Rayan or Rayan. Sorry again for
Right.
these
Who
French
is,
pronunciations.
You know, he's a firefighter.
He's like a cadet
And
or
you
something
can
like
tell
that.
He, they even mention it later on in the film that he's kind of a brown noser, and he wants the chief to like him. And I was kind of wondering, like, why didn't the chief warm up to him? You know?
Yeah.
He really only wants his son.
Yes.
Which creates
Yeah.
a very, especially as the film progresses, it creates a very tense dynamic between Adrian and Ryan.
Yeah, you could tell Ryan or Rayan or let's just go with Ryan. Yeah, we'll go with that. He does want to like fill that void because he's not a dumb dude. He can kind of tell what's going on from like the very beginning.
He's very skeptical.
Yeah, he's like, "Are you sure that's your son?" Okay, Captain. Like, whatever makes you happy. I believe he tells him that, like, "Hey, as long as you're happy, right?"
But yeah, he does when he first he tries to introduce himself to her, and then she won't shake her hand or say hi, and he's still trying to be nice. And I was gonna bounce off of his when they're in the other firefighters that are cooks, right? They're kind of making fun of him. They're like, oh, because he starts saying that like.
They obviously start making fun of Adrian's appearance. They start making like
he defends her or him at that point in a way because she's like, well, the chief brings up the chief, right? Like whatever the chief says goes.
yes, like more to Nate's point about the brown nosing. Like he feels somewhat protective over Adrian in the beginning, because yeah, I mean these guys are. You guys can't see me doing the quotes, but, you know, boys are being boys, and they're being, you know, they're saying homophobic comments about him, and they're just saying that he looks weird, and like, no, he's normal, I swear. Yeah, they kind of imply that maybe he's like special needs, you know.
Which all homophobia and special needs aside, I mean, at this point, Adrian has a fucked up nose.
Yeah.
Had they already tried to cut her hair at that point? We only cut half of it.
Yeah. I think we've skipped over this awkward scene that happens between Vincent and Adrian, where he's getting a good look at him, and the acting in this movie is incredible. Like that's what I take away from every scene when I think about it, is just how like the way he looks at her or at him. Sorry, the way he looks at Adrian is just like. You can feel that love, that he's just so happy to have his son back. And he gets a look at the scar on the side of Adrian's head, which is obviously not Adrian's scar. That's Alexia's titanium plate. And we just get this funny, awkward, weird scene, more of this family drama, comedy stuff going on within the movie. He decides to shave only half of his head, and he's like, yeah,
You're good to go.
You're good to go.
That
Just
looks great.
half the head.
Yeah.
Mind you that when Alexia was doing this transformation into Adrian, the hair was already really fucked. So now we have a completely bald side of the head and then just a completely butchered left side of the head.
It's only because he kind of like, does he go over her scar? Which like
he does kind of go over her scar tissue, and he winces
him,
like
and like makes her like push his arm out of the way, and he drops the clippers. Which is like, is that why he didn't finish it? But it just seems like a weird reason he didn't look at it and be like, why at least cut the other side shorter or something?
Yeah, but he's not he's aggressive, but he is at the same time very respectful of the fact that they've obviously been through some shit, and I can't like, what would you say? Like, you can't invade his boundaries too much,
Right.
because he does step away. And this is kind of something he does multiple times.
Which it even had happened already when they were in the car and he dropped her off and he said, you'll talk when you're ready, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So he comes off as a guy, a dad that you would want. He seems to be very almost loving and protective, and we kind of find out that it's a little different than that, but.
Yeah. So, I think one scene that we kind of mentioned is this kitchen scene, right? Where Vincent is telling his boys, his cadets, his firefighters, that he says something interesting. I am God to you, right? Yeah. That is a cool little speech.
Yeah,
he tells I'm God to you guys. And if I'm God, this makes Adrian Jesus Christ. And Jesus Christ is my son to carry on my will. And,
they make a joke, right?
Yeah,
we can't repeat.
Yeah,
it's
no.
too offensive to say.
Yeah, just go see the movie if you like stuff like
Nobody
that.
fucks with the Jesus.
Yeah, nobody fucks with the Jesus. That's damn right. That's just an interesting little dynamic that, way to be the LeVar Ball of fathers and put a giant target on your son's back, right? Like, of course they're going to fuck with Adrian now that Adrian's been put on this pedestal of like, oh, he's Jesus Christ and I'm God. That's not a good way to make friends.
No.
Which I think that already kind of plays a part to later what we'll talk about, but that's how he as a father views his missing son, right? And at this point it's Alexia, who hasn't had a father who even could look at her with seem like any type of love. And now you have somebody who's claiming like, no, I'm God and this is my son Jesus. And I think maybe at that point it doesn't show anything or say anything, but at that point in her character development, that's when she starts kind of like warming up to him a little bit, just in terms of like, it shows what kind of love a father should have for their kid, at least.
Yeah,
he's been missing.
He's definitely the father she never had, because like you said, her father refuses to look at her. Vincent almost never stops looking at Adrian, like throughout the whole film. If they are together, he's looking at Adrian because he can't believe his son is back. That's how happy he is.
With purpose too.
Yeah. So then the movie kind of takes this. Adrian is now like part of the before we get to that, let's bring up this, is that on the first night that Adrian gets to the firehouse, he's wearing his clothes from the train station or whatever, and Vincent wants him to change, and since he thinks it's his son, he's like, just go ahead and change, like right in front of me. And more to the point of like how he constantly stares at him, like he's like, why would I not stare while you're changing or whatever. But because it's Alexia, not Adrian, she kind of has to like shoo him away, like turn around, but she doesn't speak. So this is where I mean, like that the acting is just so great in this movie, because Agathe Roussel is not saying anything at this point in the film. She's acting completely with her body at this point, and she's getting her points across, and the way Vincent like understands her just with the body language lets you know that this is not a relationship she's used to having already. It's very awkward in the beginning. It takes a long time for them to really have any type of like relationship, but you can tell that she feels safe enough to not run away.
Which is this when we get the steroid scene? Is this what happens next?
Is this the first time we see the steroids?
I think so.
Or do they eat? Do they have dinner together? Or is that after?
I believe that's after. Because so we go ahead and get the steroid scene when he goes ahead and shoots up, and the man looks like an absolute gorilla, especially for like a
Dude
6-year-old
is a
man.
unit, to say the least. I know that he had trained for 2 years for this role to get into the shape that he was in, because I guess he was quite a puffy fellow before this film, but that he saw it like as a challenge too, since, you know, he's an older man, that like, I really want to do this and, you know, just play this role, because he felt so strongly about this character. He said that when he had the way he had gotten this role is that he was having dinner one night with, you know, a bunch of people, and that the director, she was there and she passed by him on the way to the bathroom, and she told him, "I'm writing a film for you." And he was shocked, because he said, in France, that's not something we do. You don't just say that. Like, so he's like, I called her the very next day, like, hey, you said something last night, I don't know if you remember, and that she cut him off and said, no, I remember exactly what I told you, and yes, I'm writing a movie for you. So that he felt he said, I was the only actor in France who could do this role, because this movie was written for me. Like, I wasn't going to pass this up, and like, there was no way I wasn't doing this movie. And he really puts his all into this character.
He killed it.
So
Yeah.
Has he been in other movies?
Oh, yeah. He's been in quite a few films. I'm not going to sit here and say I've seen any of the movies he's in, but I liked him so much that I'm willing to go back now, and I want to watch all types of movies that he's in.
Right.
And the same with like a goth, like I want to see whatever the hell she's in next. And Julia Ducournau, the director, I'm completely sold. You already have your next movie. You have 3 tickets sold already. Let's just put it that way.
Seriously.
I have season tickets to her films, right? Yeah, like I'm seeing whatever she puts out.
Seriously.
She's on my my horror Mount Rushmore that I have going right now. It's these new generation of horror directors, and it's Ari Aster, Robert Eggers, Jordan Peele, and Julia Ducournau. These are the masters of horror right now, in my humble opinion. And I'm so excited for where the genre is going.
It would be hard to argue with that list.
Yeah, like, I mean, I'm sure there's other people out there, and if you're listening to this and I left out someone that you think is great, leave it in the comments, because just because we're giving movie recommendations and talking about movies doesn't mean that we don't accept them either. So, you know, put us on game, show us something really cool as well, and, you know, maybe we'll talk about it one day.
Then we can talk about it and let you know. Obviously, if it shows up on here, we loved it a lot. So,
Yeah. So I think that back to the whole the steroids with Vincent, I feel like that is a good representation of him still hanging on to the past. Like,
Yes.
He's still hanging on to his youth. He's still trying to be as strong as he can be. He's a man that cannot progress to where he is now in life. He can't accept where he is, like, mentally, I guess. And you can see that the steroids, I know you brought it up earlier, they don't really have any effect anymore. This man's ass has some bad bruises all over it. Like, it doesn't look great. And then you can see he even tries to do a pull-up, and he can't do it.
Oh yeah,
So
like
whether or not, you know, you look great, are you really strong? So
no, he's not, which is
but I think, and never mind. Actually, it's the next scene that follows. I'll bring it up then, because I think that's just something bouncing back of like strength, and it kind of shows you like I don't know. I'd like to think it's like a little. It's almost like opposite of each other, of showing like strength. Like you see that from him, but in a later scene you end up seeing that he does have more strength than like Adrian, right?
yeah.
Because then they start, but then again, Adrian was able to fight that linebacker type guy. So it's kind of very interesting, that like little power dynamic there that they show. But bouncing, I'll talk more about
You
that.
guys want to talk about the dinner scene? I think that's a good scene.
Yeah, that is
So they're having their old spaghetti and wine one night, and he makes another attempt to start like a dialogue with Adrian, right? He's just talking to her him, and you know, he's telling Adrian, like, you're gonna have to speak eventually. Like, can you at least say hey? Like, parrots. He says this is another funny part of this movie. He says like, even parrots say hey. He's like, you can teach a parrot to say hey. He's like, my phone says hey. And then he like picks up his phone and he tells like the French Siri, like, say hey, and it says hey to him. And he's like, I pay 20 euros a month for that shit, which is just such a funny little line that he throws in.
And you can almost like feel like his frustration growing.
Yeah.
You can see this is after he gets frustrated with himself not being able to do the pull up, and he starts downing wine.
Yes.
Like this whole dinner scene, he's pouring a glass, drinking it in one gulp, pouring another glass, drinking it in a gulp, and this is all in between what Gus just said, and you can just see like he's getting a little frustrated with Adrian. It seems.
Yeah. And then at this point, they get into a physical altercation, correct? And sorry, they don't get into the physical altercation. Adrian attempts to leave, and then we get this cool little music cue, right? Mm-hmm. And as Adrian is down the hall, he decides to turn back around, and we see Vincent doing his little dance from the trailer, right? And they start dancing together, and it's like one of these like. It's one of the like few nice moments that is left in this film, and it's just like showing that like it doesn't matter if you are not going to talk to me, it doesn't matter if you're angry, it doesn't matter if you're not Adrian, like I'm just going to be like here for you and protect you and take care of you. And like
see them, they're
like
dancing. It's a very good scene, and then all of a sudden the dancing gets a little more aggressive, and
a lot of chest bumps and stuff like that.
Vincent is passing Adrian, he throws like he shoulder checks him or chest bumps him. And that kind of happens more and more and more until it becomes a physical altercation. And I honestly think that Vincent is just trying to get a reaction out of Adrian.
Yeah.
Do something. Like, come on. Like, show me some sort of anything.
I think before, little thing that we missed to talk about, because it bounces on this scene, is when he does collect his clothes after, when he first comes to the house. Remember, he washes his clothes and he feeds the threading needle,
the chopstick,
and instead of taking it, he just kind of leaves it there too.
Yeah.
And so then later I feel like it's almost like saying like he already had an idea, was there, he was waiting for it.
Mm-hmm.
But it's also never, I don't know, he didn't even question it, which again bounces back to like it almost seems like he doesn't care that if it wasn't him, as long as it replaced who he thought Adrian was, he just needed that connection to be there.
That's a good point. So the dancing scene, like we said, it builds up to a physical altercation to where they're wrestling on the ground. They start slapping each other, and then they end up on the ground, and Adrian goes ahead and pulls the trusty chopstick out.
Yeah.
And Vincent grabs it immediately, which I think, maybe he was waiting for that.
Yeah. He knew that was coming eventually, right? And what does he say? He's like, "What are you gonna do with that? What are you in a knitting club or something like that?" He drops like another funny little line, right? And this is where you can see that like, okay, like you may have been a murderer or something like that, but here like you're not gonna get the best of me, right? And like I think that's another reason why Vincent is so just insistent on like making this work, is like he's not worried about even being killed either, because he already knows that this is a possibility now. Mm-hmm. So this is just something he's constantly keeping in the back of his mind.
That's correct. He even said that he's willing to kill himself if he did something too.
Yeah. This takes us to these like firefighter scenes, right?
I think before that, does she try to escape, or does that happen later?
Oof.
I honestly don't remember.
Yeah. I'm sorry, folks, on this one.
Hold on. The next scene I thought was the scene where they're in that like diner type thing. Not yet. Where, like,
refresh my memory.
Where all the firefighters are dancing, and that's when Ryan finds out. He reads it. That's not yet.
So before that, she leaves. He ends up letting.
She does.
Adrian leave.
That's when he ODs on the.
So he leaves. Adrian just leaves the house after this altercation.
Yeah.
Right. He finally just kind of lets him go. Like he realized, like this got to the point where Adrian almost just killed me. I think he kind of gives her some space, gives him some space. Adrian leaves, and we see Vincent go ahead and he takes a couple pills. We're not really aware of what they are. But you also have to think that he's probably drank close to a bottle of wine. And he goes ahead and shoots up with 2 doses of steroids and proceeds to overdose. And what I thought was really interesting is that you have Adrian, who finally has that freedom. Like, okay, I'm gone. I'm free from this. We're on to the next, wherever life is going to take me kind of thing. Well, he decides to come back. And there he finds Vincent basically passed out in the bathroom after ODing, and doesn't call him Vincent, doesn't say anything. She says, "Wake up, Papa."
Yeah.
She calls him Dad, or he calls him Dad. So I think that's a big point where they kind of come together I don't know if it's because she realizes that maybe this man is also, he's a broken man.
Yeah.
And I think maybe that helps him relate closer.
I think Adrian seeing that Vincent is not like a perfect person, because Adrian / Alexia is definitely not a perfect person. I think this is more of a like, okay, I can trust this person because this person's going through some shit as well.
It allows him to be a little more comfortable in that situation.
And this is like the first tender moment you get between these two characters.
Then it proceeds into the dancing scene with all the firefighters.
My other question is too, there's a scene where Vincent, doesn't he take pills and also drown it with wine?
Yeah.
Was that before?
That was right before he shot up with the steroids.
So that's in that same bathroom.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why anticipating that's why he ODs, right?
Because I think in his head, he's like, I have my son back. We fought, pulled what is almost basically a knife on me, and then I finally let him go. And what do I have left? I finally got my son. I let my son leave, and he just kind of, I don't think he cares.
That makes sense.
And so he goes ahead, pops a bunch of pills, and then shoots himself up with what we assume are steroids, and he goes ahead and overdoses.
And then she brings him back, right?
She goes back to the bathroom and
kind of wakes him
up, calls him Papa, and sits there until he basically wakes up.
Yeah.
Which I was kind of under the impression that he might have been dead.
Scene after that though, that's where I'm not exactly sure. That's when you're talking about they go to the dancing now with the firefighters.
That's
what
when,
seems like a club, right?
So now they're basically in like what looks to be kind of like the fire station's kitchen or something, and all the everybody's drinking some beers and playing some music. And we see Adrian and Vincent, father and son, sitting together, enjoying beer, drinking out of a straw. I thought that was kind of funny.
Yeah.
Whatever that was about. I don't know if that's a French thing or something, but everybody's hanging out and dancing, and it's a really cool scene. But this is also the first scene where we see,
Ryan
is where Ryan kind of
implies that maybe there's something going on with your son that you're not really aware of.
Because he sees the report on his phone.
Yeah. Oh no. We're oh man, we're getting all over the place, folks. I'm sorry about this.
Even before the dancing scene is where we
have to talk about these scenes. We have to talk about these Adrian just becoming like a voluntary firefighter type of deal.
Next scene had what I thought was the funniest moment of the film. Basically what happens is Vincent goes ahead and brings Adrian on a job. Basically, we're not really sure what they're doing, but Ryan is also there. And what happens is they're called because somebody's unresponsive. We basically see that it looks like somebody may have overdosed or threw up in their sleep. They're resuscitating them. Well, it's an older, maybe 40-year-old male, and he lives with his mom, who is a character.
Oh yeah.
So they're going ahead and. Ryan and Vincent are going ahead and trying to resuscitate this man, while what happens is the mom goes ahead and starts having
I believe Vincent says, shit, she's croaking now too.
He goes, fuck, now she's croaking too. And I thought it was just so funny. Like, once again, this film really does have it all.
The comedy in this scene is hilarious because now Adrian, who was told to not do anything except for to sit there and just watch, is being thrown into action because Vincent wants Adrian to resuscitate the lady, and he's gonna have to give him mouth to mouth, and he's like, "Do you know the Macarena?"
Yep.
The Macarena.
And they start singing the Macarena as the beat that they need to go to resuscitate this lady. So he da 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 Macarena.
It's very funny to hear the song in French.
Yeah. So it actually fucking works, and Adrian resuscitates the old woman, and I think the son dies. No,
I'm honestly not sure.
I know they take a body out on a stretcher, but it's covered, so you don't know if it's the.
I think it's the son.
It's probably the son, right? Yeah. And then what Nate was alluding to is that Ryan was there on the job, and on the way back to the fire station, he's on his phone looking at just like the news or whatever, and he sees the report about Alexia. And we kind of noted earlier that Ryan is like a smart dude. He could see right through this whole guise from the beginning. He knows that it's not Adrian, and he just takes a look at Adrian and he says, like, "So who are you really, and where did you come from?" like implying, you know, you're not Adrian and I'm on to you. And this is just like the first scene that starts this other side story brewing that Ryan is going to basically try to snitch out Adrian at the first chance he gets. We'll go back to the dancing scene now, because this is where after the dancing scene, and this is an amazing scene. It's got like the neon lighting. The neon light in this movie is like well used. It can be done poorly, but yeah, like the French people know what they're doing with the neon.
I like what Ro always says. It's such a great scene to me, because like everybody's been in the moment that the chief was at that time, where you're just kind of sitting around, you're enjoying a beer, and everybody's like, come dance
Yeah.
with me." And you can see that he doesn't really want to, but he gets on the dance floor and he starts moving around, and he gets super into it.
It's an incredible scene. And then, you know, Ryan decides he's going to try and crash the party by telling the chief that he has some news about Adrian, and the chief tells sorry. Whoa, what the hell? the chief tells him, like, I don't want to hear it, and don't ever talk about my son again. And it's just, you know, it's kind of more into the fact that this guy just doesn't want to hear any of this. He's not interested in knowing the truth, basically, about the situation that's at hand. He just wants to, I have my son back and everything's good. Like, nothing else really matters.
And then I feel like is this where we really start to kind of get into the body horror, where her pregnancy kind of starts?
Yeah, her pregnancy is very fast.
In that scene later is when they start dancing again, and he picks her up.
Oh, true.
And then that's like, he picks her up by her like stomach the whole time.
Yeah, on a daily basis, she has to bandage her stomach and her breast to
try to appear like
try to appear more
And
manly. Yeah.
So at this point, like we're talking about, which was something I was waiting to bring up at the end, because it's one of the things that I have a question is like, how fast is this pregnancy going, right?
Yeah,
What is our
the
timeline?
movie implies that this all happens within like a week. No?
Do you think so?
I'm not sure.
I don't know. Between the first time when she kills the guy and has sex with the car, until the scene where she makes out with Justine and murders everyone in that house, I'm not really sure exactly how much time passes between that, but it does seem very
fast.
quick.
I think once we kind of switch over to where she's working at the fires, or he's working at the fire station, that's where I feel like time gets a little lost, because you have to think, like, she had horrible injuries when she arrived. Partway into this, like, by that dancing scene, I don't even think that her eye, like, she healed pretty fast. So I think that maybe that's kind of
Like a 3 week
showing you that, you know, maybe time is moving a little bit faster, I guess, than you think it is. We're not really shown how
Yeah,
many
the
days
timeline is not extremely clear, I don't feel like.
I don't know if I also don't know if it's super important either.
I don't
Yeah.
think it's important, but it was what I was gonna say is my first indication, though, that what I was touching upon, like, is this how she's perceiving it, or is it really like this? Because is it because she had
Is it
sex
fast?
with the car?
Yeah.
Is
Yeah.
it fast, right?
I don't know.
200 horsepower fast?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, at this point, obviously her pregnancy is progressing and it's getting way harder for her to conceal it, and it's also becoming way more graphic every time she bandages herself. You begin to hear like a crunching sound. She's like ripping apart at the stomach slowly.
An itch, I guess you could say. There's a spot on her stomach where you don't really see it at first. You're not directly shown like the actual scratching and what the spot looks like, but she's just going to town on this one spot on the side of her stomach. And gradually, as the film, you know, kind of moves on, that spot gets bigger and bigger, and you're shown on like what is really going on here.
Yeah, the body horror does start to pick up again after this. I don't know. Would you guys say it's like 20 or 30 minutes of this like family type
Probably.
of drama?
Yeah.
Comedy,
And then it
like
kind
a
of
little bit of
reminds you,
everything.
like, you know, this is still happening.
She's spilling oil.
Yeah.
everywhere.
Yes, she begins to lactate oil from her breast,
Right.
and
The next scene after all of this, when they finally invite the mom of the kid,
yeah,
right?
I believe so. Like
Adrian, the mother
yeah.
of Adrian.
Let's just we don't have to go scene by scene, even though we've been trying to. I don't feel like we've been doing a great job of going scene by scene. We're kind of jumping all over the place. We're mostly trying to just hit the most important parts. So eventually, after like, you know, however much time has passed by, Vincent decides to invite Adrian's mother, who he is separated from, And she knows instantly that this is not Adrian. And the reason that we had been talking about that this is obviously not Adrian at all and that we've kind of skipped over, this is why I think that we're not doing a good job of describing it as a scene-by-scene basis, is that Adrian lived in this firehouse when he was a little boy. And during one of their training sessions where they have like controlled fires and stuff like that, Adrian was burned alive in he was sitting in like a cabinet or something like that. And during this exercise, he was killed by the fire, obviously. So this is why Alexia can obviously not be Adrian, and that there is no way Adrian is even alive. Which just brings up a ton more questions with the police. How did this happen where this little boy burned to death and it was never reported to the police, or it's just that he went missing,
in my
right?
head, I was like, did the father dispose of the body and just continue to live on this fake fantasy? Like,
Who knows?
Couldn't come to grips with it. That's one of the, another sidebar that this movie kind of brings up.
Is maybe Vincent like a criminal as well? Like, is he held to like a criminal standard, I guess? I don't know. Like, is what he did considered a crime as well if he didn't
after disposing of the body? I would think so.
right?
Yeah.
So because how can the police not know this, right? How could he just be considered missing for 10 years if he burned to death?
Right. Exactly. Very powerful scene.
Which is obviously why Vincent is separated from the mother. She tells Vincent, like, how can you even stay in this house? Like, you can still smell him, like, on the walls, and, like, you have his toys and all these things just laying around. Yes, I mean, these kind of things happen all the time in real life where, like, these divorces will happen after people, like, lose a child and stuff like that. So their marriage obviously just deteriorated after that, and she split, and she seems to be coping somewhat well.
Right.
And he's just not. As we can tell, Vincent is definitely not okay.
Not doing so well.
Yeah, he's not doing so hot anymore.
And, so, which takes us to the next part in the scene, basically, where Adrian goes ahead and goes back to his room. It begins to change, and we get this very gnarly scene of, once again, lactating oil and oil spilling from, her vagina. And the mom goes ahead and just walks in and sees everything happen.
Yes, the identity is blown.
Compromise.
Yeah,
It's the first time that Alexia is kind of,
the jig is well and truly up, to say the least. To say it.
Even more surprising. I don't know how surprising it is because obviously it's not Adrian,
Yeah.
But the mom basically says that, go ahead, whatever you guys are doing, just make him happy.
Take care of him.
He needs somebody to take care of him.
She says like a line like, I don't care about like that you're taking advantage of his fucking folly.
Mm-hmm.
Like, yeah, okay, you're obviously taking advantage of him, but it doesn't matter because it seems that you make him happy, and like that's what I want for him, which is kind of cool that the mom decides not to say anything.
What a level of acceptance! Like I find that
She's like, I was already out of here. Okay, I'm not trying to be brought back into this. Yeah. Whatever I live on the other side of France now.
Which she legitimately says because he says something. I think Vincent says, "You can't take him" or something.
Yeah.
And she said, "I don't want him."
Yeah. Yes.
Like I do not want him.
Ooh, sorry if I yelled into the mic. Yeah. He's already trying to have these family disputes of like, I want custody over Adrian. She's whatever, go ahead. Yeah. But okay.
Because again, she knows it's not him.
Yes, because there's no way it's Adrian at this point. This is really gonna start like, I think we should start winding down, talking about how this movie ends. One last interesting thing I want to bring up before we get to like the ending of the film is we're kind of leaving a loose end here with Ryan. He has tried to snitch, right? He knows what's going on, and we see this exercise going on, training that they do of a forest fire, and trying to, what would you call it? Like extract a tank of oxygen?
A propane tank,
yeah,
I think.
or a propane tank or something like that. And Vincent hands it to Ryan, and the thing blows up, and it's pretty much implied that Vincent is like trying to kill Ryan to keep covering this up. That like, I told Adrian that I would kill anybody who tried to hurt him, even myself. So he kind of tries to take Ryan out of the picture, and we see a few minutes later that it was not successful, and it brings us to one of our other funny, hilarious scenes in this film. It just goes to show you that this movie really did have it all, man. Like, they were not going to pull any punches on anything. We have another dance scene, which I did find kind of awkward at first.
It was very awkward.
Because I was like, why are they celebrating and dancing around when this guy Ryan like has just died?
Blown up.
Yeah. And then he comes out. We see Ryan is still alive, and he's wearing a hoodie. He's all burnt face, looking like Zuko from Avatar. And he's just staring there, like looking at Adrian. And Adrian is dancing and having a good time with the boys. You know, once again, these firehouse vibes are extremely chill.
Crazy house music going on.
Yeah, these dudes are fucking moshing a storm
There
up.
was a lot of alpha male energy. in
Yeah.
this.
Seriously.
Big
They're
al-
all- they're all huge. They're
Big
all
alpha
big.
male energy.
Shirtless house music, mosh pit. It was interesting.
At this point, two of the firefighters pick up Adrian, and they make Adrian climb to the top of a fire truck and do like a dance. This is probably just like some kind of hazing that they do. It had, because like as you're saying, this had very college fraternity vibes to it. It's like this must have been like the initiation. And they're like,
Yeah,
okay,
sure,
Adrian,
one
we're gonna
of us.
accept you. Like one of us, and go ahead and dance up on that fire truck there and give us a show. And Adrian kind of blows his cover by going ahead and doing the same kind of exotic dancing that Alexia would do on top of cars. And this makes these alpha males extremely, extremely uncomfortable to the point of showing looks of disgust on their face.
Hilarious scene.
Yeah,
Full
this,
faces of disgust,
yeah, this scene is hilarious, even though it's kind of a homophobic scene. Just seeing how these guys are so unaccepting. We do see a few of the guys are just they're watching the show. They're kind of just taking in what's going on. That's another interesting sidebar. Is like,
Right.
hey, maybe some of these guys don't care.
Yeah.
Uh,
I did see half
earlier-
and half, or like a little bit of both of them.
Earlier, when what Ro was alluding to, like those kitchen scenes, one of the firefighters tries to make Adrian uncomfortable, and one of the other firefighters is like, "No, they're normal. Like I promise you, they're normal. They're just a regular person." And the other firefighter saying like, "No, they're weird. Something's up with them." And this guy's saying, "No, like they're normal. Trust me." And then later on, I think it's that guy who's like enjoying the show. You know what I mean? It's just kind of an interesting dynamic. Like, you know, like some of these guys, even though they appear to be alpha males, you never know like who's into what. And maybe he's into Adrian because some of these people are enjoying the show.
The attention
Some of them are completely disgusted.
Right. Yeah.
At this point, it's a very sensual dance. I don't know what else to say about it besides
As
that.
she's up there, we see Vincent come in, the chief, her dad, and he kind of takes a look at her or him and what he's doing, and he just leaves. So I thought that was a very
And Adrian proceeds to finish the show because the show must go on. There was another film that had that in it. I can't remember what it is, but the whole like, yeah, I'm still going, and even though you're watching me, like I can't stop till it's over. But just a funny ass scene, like one last funny scene before this movie becomes just even worse.
the climax.
We should probably get to this, that we do eventually have the reveal for Vincent that it's not his son Adrian, and that it is Alexia, because he sees Alexia naked for the first time, and he sees the baby bump. Obviously, he sees her womanly parts. So what is he gonna do? You know, the illusion is pretty much shattered at this point. But he picks up the towel, puts it back on, and he tells them that it doesn't matter. You're still my son. I don't care who you are.
And there's
And-
nothing you can do or
and
anything anybody can say.
Say
to
tell me that you're not my son. Which is just, it's just awesome that this guy is willing to, like, he just wants to be a dad so bad.
She picked the right face on that.
Yeah,
On that
she hit the
sensation.
lottery. She hit the lottery on that one, bro. Like, she couldn't have picked a better identity to steal. Like, oh man, someone who's just gonna accept me and ask no questions.
Adrian Legrand. Wow.
Yeah, definitely. That's a great point. So, you know, her cover's blown at this point, but it doesn't matter anymore. And I think it's time we talk about the climax. It's
Yeah.
time to talk about the full body horror of this movie.
Wait, there is one more interesting
No? We have one more thing to talk
One
about?
more, it's because this movie's amazing, but there is like, I think she has relationships with the fire truck, right?
Oh.
After she's pregnant.
Yes. Well, that's part of the climax, though.
Okay.
Because
okay.
she...
That's where it
Yeah.
starts. That's where it starts.
We, things start to be going a little... some more time passes. Maybe it's one day. Maybe it's a week or so. We don't know. But... a little bit of time has passed, and Adrian / Alexia, it's time to get the rocks off once again, and she just cheats on her car.
Yeah.
What the hell is that all about, dude?
And how different is the first car fucking scene to the second?
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, beautiful scene, the first one. Very incredible, mesmerizing, I thought.
It is.
Compared to it was sad, it was lonely. She did not even look like she was really enjoying, the sex with the fire truck. The tones had completely shifted, and I think it was a foreshadowing for the climax.
That fire truck was the truck your car tells you not to worry about, right? Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Poor Cadillac, dude. What did he ever do to deserve this? But yeah, so she has relations with the fire truck. And we get to our climax. It's time for Alexia to give birth to her child.
Her child.
Her child, definitely her child.
Which at this point, she's been like keeping down with the bandages, right? She's been, like you said prior, she had stuck like something to try to give herself, like an abortion.
Mm-hmm.
She had punched her stomach a couple. Right? She had punched her stomach.
She
Throughout
punched
the
her
entire
stomach.
movie, she was beating her stomach up. Like she was doing everything.
She was doing everything she could to not have this baby.
But it was time.
It's time.
So after she goes ahead and has sex with the fire truck, she collapses a bit on the floor of the fire station, I think, and we get some more oil leaking and some more itching and scratching of the spot that she's been paying attention to, which, oh my God, it's horrible. And then I think that's when she kind of wanders into Vincent's room, right?
Yes. Or does she wander into his room?
Yes, she does, because after she does the dancing is when he's pouring the brandy, I would say, on his chest, and he's lighting it on fire.
Yes,
and she
right.
walks and like she goes and lays down on him, and he's been doing that too. Like they're both kind of doing their own thing. Once they both like kind of had come to like grips that, okay, I'm dancing on top of this fire truck. You know that I don't care if they know. You know I'm not him anymore. And so Vincent again subconsciously was like, so it's not like he already knew it wasn't his son, but it's almost like he would
It's out in the open.
And then she attempts to give him a kiss. No. When she's laying with him. So, and this kind of like really shatters the illusion for him. Like, whoa. He's like, I don't want this. Like, no, I want you to be my son. I don't want you to be like any of this like weird incestual fucking relationship that you're trying to have right now.
There's a line.
Okay? Yeah, okay, we have some boundaries in this household. I think it's time we talk about the birth.
This is when she finally we get the flip back from Adrian to Alexia.
Yes, because she's finally going to admit to Vincent that her name is Alexia. Finally, after this whole time.
So what I found to be really powerful about this last scene is, so after sex with the fire truck, he lights himself on fire a little bit. She goes ahead, wanders into his room, puts her head on his stomach, and then she goes in for the kiss. And that's when he gets up, is very disgusted, and she's writhing in pain in the bed.
Yeah. She
is writhing, she is leaking oil out of like orifices all over her body. And you can tell, like, at first I thought that he was disgusted.
Yeah.
You can tell he doesn't really know what to do. He flips her over, pulls her towards the end of the bed, and I was like, what the hell is about to happen? And he goes into full firefighter mode and tries to deliver the baby.
Further proof that this guy Vincent is fucking just ready to go, like as a father, because this awkward moment happens. He sees her in pain, and the switch just like flips instantly into like, no, she's hurt. I need to protect her. Like he doesn't even like question what's going on. Like she's leaking oil all over the bed, and he's like, okay, what do we do? Like, oh shit, she's pregnant.
We got to deliver this.
Yeah.
I think the switch hits for that with him is because, do you remember? She tells him, she's like, no, don't leave. I'm scared.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So
Yes.
it's almost like at that moment it switched for him because it was like, well, if Adrian was in trouble, I would
Yes,
help him.
he
And
doesn't
so-
care anymore.
And she was like, in terms of she didn't care anymore either. She's like, I came to you for you to help me. So are you gonna help me? And it's almost like
There's no point in
person,
keeping
I
up
guess.
this illusion anymore. Like, okay, I'm having this thing and I need your help, and please don't leave me, and I know I lied to you and all of that. Like, these are all these unspoken things that are like happening, and like you can see just in the, like, once again, the acting just being so incredible. Like, you could tell everything that's going on just by the two of them looking at each other and stuff.
And another testament to how really like versatile this movie is. And even I thought it threw in a little bit element of comedy when he starts to deliver the baby and he's push Adrian, push.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
Then, like, that's funny. I thought
It's just funny because he's talking to his son and he's telling him to
Push the
push,
baby
yeah.
And then that's when Adrian finally goes, "My name is Alexia."
Yes.
And he starts calling her by Alexia. And they go ahead and they deliver the baby, and this scene is absolutely fucking brutal.
Her stomach, the way it rips open, and you can see the titanium that's all inside of her stomach. I mean, I thought it was, I think it was pretty obvious what the end was for her, that this was not going to end well. There was no way. Yeah, that this was the end of Alexia. This was her cycle.
It was crazy. I mean, because the body horror was incredible. Because, you know, like we were talking about the spot that she had been itching, she had pushed through her stomach. Or a little bit earlier.
She had itched all the way through her stomach.
Ripped through her skin, and you could see a little bit of
The titanium, yeah.
And then as she's giving birth, this just starts ripping and ripping and ripping. And you get, like we've talked about, the scar that she has on her head. That shit rips open too, reveals her titanium plate. And oil is just pouring out of her vagina at this point. It is just, I don't know. It was an incredible scene.
Yeah, and then we get the reveal of the child.
Which you were really, I thought that was really funny. I was gonna not before you start talking about it, because it was a thought that I had. 'Cause I was like, what is this gonna look
I'm
like,
sure.
right?
Yeah, obviously, since we're in the movie, we're not talking to each other. But I know we were all thinking, like, okay, like, what is this thing gonna look like? Right? Is it gonna be a child? I low key thought, is she really gonna give birth to a small car?
I was like, is it gonna be an engine or something? Like,
Yes.
I don't know.
I'm glad you said that, because the idea of this happening, of the whole like getting pregnant by a car and like giving birth to like a robotic child or something like that, is that Julia Ducournau used to have this recurring nightmare that she would give birth to pieces of a car engine.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Interesting. I didn't know that.
And that's where this whole idea came from, of like getting impregnated by a car.
I had made the joke to you. Remember, I did look over you, and I was like, when you knew she was pregnant, I was like, ka-chow.
Ka-chow. Like,
Yeah,
a little, like,
yeah, heavy ka-chow vibes in this movie. I was really wondering, like, okay, is this child gonna have wheels instead of legs? Like, what are we going? What's going on here? Yeah, headlights instead of eyes. Like, is it just gonna be some like anthropomorphic car?
Like Neon was like, oh, you think Lamb is crazy, right?
Was it gonna look like the taxi from Roger Rabbit?
Oh my goodness.
So I had many thoughts going through, but I think they pulled through beautifully and delivered something that was like shocking yet very subtle at the same time.
The baby had its spine looked to be made of metal. It also had a titanium plate that was showing through its skull.
Yes, it had the exact same titanium plate in its skull that Alexia had. Kind of, since we talked about this like theme of rebirth earlier,
Right.
did you guys think like, is this Alexia reborn, or like, who is this? Like, what is this?
I took it as it's Adrian reborn.
That it's Adrian reborn?
Yeah.
Because I think it replaces Vincent's son. You know.
Yeah, because, well, we're winding down here. So Alexia passes away as she gives birth to the child. I don't see how she could have survived this. Like, her stomach was completely ripped open, and it was titanium at this point. So she gives birth to the new flesh. Yeah, to the long live the new flesh. Heavy Cronenberg vibes right there at the end. I know that's not really a hot take. I know everyone's saying that, but it really is. Like, this is some of the best body horror since Cronenberg, and you know, shout out to his son Brandon Cronenberg, also doing amazing work. But this was a really like gruesome scene, and for me, body horror is like my number one thing that like really, I would say, gets me into theater. Like, I have a hard time even watching like surgery scenes in a movie, like when they slice someone open. So this movie was hard for me to watch. Like, physically hard for me to watch, even though I was very much enjoying.
But you can't look away.
Yeah, you just can't look away. No. So let's wind down here. I guess we described this movie. I hope you understood what was going on. I'm sure we weren't the clearest. So please see this movie so it makes sense to you. Come back and listen to this. Let's just kind of keep going here and maybe talk about the movie in a way other than the plot. Like just like this movie, dude. We've been going now for almost 2 hours, and I still feel like I have like a lot to say, but we do need to wind down here soon. But like, what are you guys' like final thoughts on this movie?
Man, it was incredible. It really is such a unique take on the bonding that people share over trauma in a way.
Yeah.
It was a very unique take on trauma and how trauma at a young age can really impact you as you develop and grow up, and how not maybe correcting that or neglect from people that are supposedly supposed to care about you can lead to, a person like Alexia.
True. What about you, Ro? You got some final thoughts about this movie?
I just guess like bouncing back to the thing that we had brought up at first about like, is my narrator reliable? So then my thoughts are like, did she really have a mechanical baby, or is it really just something that's how she sees it from, because we know that her brain isn't fully there. And I know it doesn't like, there's no it doesn't change it to me what the answer is, but it's something that I've been curious about, is like, because it never at one point seems like Vincent is really even like amazed that it's, or not even the mom is amazed that it's like a mechanical oil baby. It just seems like it's more like it might just be a regular
I
baby.
think that it's just the reason that they're so like unfazed by what this baby looks like, though, is just going to the love aspect of this movie, that their love is like unconditional. So like it doesn't matter that baby had a mechanical spine when it was born. Like you're saying, Vincent doesn't see the baby that way, like not in a literal way, but like in the way where this would block how Alexia's father viewed her.
Right.
How he did not love her unconditionally. He didn't love her before the accident, and he loved her even less after the accident. But Vincent and Alexia have developed like an unconditional love for each other. And now for this baby, like he promises that he'll take care of the baby the same way that he took care of Alexia / Adrian. And I just think that like that's like a really beautiful touch like to the end of this movie, because this movie, like, even though it's about all of these like crazy things like body horror, and like it's a thriller, and it's got some family drama, and it's got a lot of comedy in it, like at the end of the day, this movie is like about love. And it's about like what true and unconditional love looks like. And I know that the director said that when she was doing the post-production of Raw, that movie has love in it as well, like the relationship between the two characters, but that she felt that love was just like a side piece in her movie, and that she felt that love was something that was hard for her to describe and like show in a movie, so that Titane is the like, it's the final result of someone trying to write about love when they don't necessarily feel like that's something they're good at doing. So for this movie to be like a movie about love at the end of the day, even though it's got all these other things in it, is just like why it's such an awesome movie, and why directors like Julia Ducournau are like really pushing the boundaries of like what genre can be. Because if I just told you this was a body horror movie, I'm sure you wouldn't think about any of these like things we just talked about.
Tropes or any of that, like the unconditional love is one of the big ones. Like that's what you're saying, basically.
Yeah, like that's like to me that like that's what this movie is about, is two people who are seeking like unconditional love, and that they find it in each other, and this baby is like what would you say, the
culmination.
This is the culmination of this entire thing of unconditional love. Yeah, and like this baby was born out of unconditional love, even though she tried to get rid of it many times. But yeah, that like I love that it doesn't matter, like that the baby had a mechanical spine and had like the spot in the head. I think that's very cool. And I mean, please don't give me a sequel, but didn't it leave you wondering, like, so what does this mean now for the future of this?
Of course, yeah.
Yeah, right? Like, I love that, like, that I'm never going to get to know, but in my head, I will always have, like, so what happens with that baby? Like, there's like an mechanical android human baby in the world, and like what does that entail? Like, does that baby have like powers, or I don't know. I mean, I'm glad it doesn't tell me that kind of stuff because it really cornball it up at the end.
Right, exactly.
But just to leave that whole like that like allusion to Cronenberg, like long live the new flesh, like the new flesh has been born. Now everything is different going forward from this, like that whole rebirth thing you're talking about, and like being reborn and like new, and like this movie's ending is like newness, like that. The world will never be the same now after Alexia and Vincent.
The kid's gonna be a really, really, really good firefighter.
Because titanium is a high resistant heat alloy or some.
See, exactly.
Yeah. It all ties together.
That's why we love the director.
Yeah, I
I
mean,
thoroughly could believe that that's how deep she's thought about it. I mean, like in terms of.
And that's why I think kind of way back, 2 hours ago, what I said about that's why people win the Palme d'Or. It's
Exactly.
it's a film that's a culmination of something that they've really been trying to capture and show other people. 'Cause, I mean, shit, it was an incredible movie. If you haven't seen it, go see it. ASAP.
if you have seen it, please tell us how you feel about it. Please leave a comment. We want to talk to you guys about these kinds of things. And yeah, I mean,
Keep coming back.
keep coming back. I think this is we're gonna wrap right now, the first episode. If you've listened this far into the podcast, congratulations. You are amazing, and I love you, and you're the best. Mwah.
You are the best.
And I think we're gonna start doing these like little. We're gonna do a little code word thing at the end of every podcast to see who listens to the end. So, let's say I think the new flesh will be the code word.
We
So
should always pick a word that definitely has to do.
that has a theme with the
Yeah,
movie.
right.
So, for the end of this episode, if you made it this far, please DM us at the Grand Cinema Hotel on Instagram and DM us the new flesh to let us know that you made it this far into the pod, and maybe we'll have something special for people in the future who do those kinds of things. If you're listening to this on YouTube, come on, man. You know the drill. Like and subscribe. Leave a comment. Smash that motherfucking like button, as he so graciously put it. I'm Gus,
I'm Alvaro.
I'm Nathan.
and this was the Grand Cinema Hotel, and have a good night. Bye.
Hey.